What's going on, car nerds? Welcome back to the Fuel for Thought podcast. I'm here with
Kevin
and Jay. If you guys didn't know that already, we're on episode 32 this week. Kevin, what are we talking about?
So we're going to be talking about Formula 1 cars, which is a big topic. We've mentioned it before.
Yeah, we need to dive deep into this because we've talked about it so many times, and now we need to actually get to it and dive deep into the world of Formula 1.
Yeah, but before we do that,
yes,
we have some very exciting news. We'll do the rapid news segment, and this is quite surprising, honestly. I didn't see this coming, but the M5 Touring, which is the sedan version of the M5, the wagon version of the M5,
yeah,
is now coming to Canada and the US. It has officially been announced by BMW, confirmed, which is very cool because I feel like Europe always gets like the cool wagon versions of everything, and Canada and US just don't.
Just get shafted. We don't get any of the wagons, the Audi wagons anymore. All the, I guess the R6 was like the first one.
Yeah.
So it's really nice to see that we're finally getting some more interesting ones. Hopefully this starts like a whole revolution of bringing cooler cars here.
I guess, yeah, Mercedes did it with the E63 wagon, and then the RS6 came, and that was huge. Mm-hmm. It's still huge. Like, that thing sells so well. You see one like everywhere.
It's insane. Yeah, they're so sick. It's definitely one of my favorite cars too.
Yeah.
Definitely something I would want.
Essentially, what I'm guessing happened is BMW saw how well the E63 and the RS6 was doing, and they're like, well, we want money, so let's do it.
It's capitalized, baby.
And it paid off because within a few days of announcing this, they got 7,200 orders.
Jesus.
For pre-orders.
That's insane.
For the car.
And that's just, is that North America?
I'm not sure if I think it's, North America.
Okay.
But yeah, that's
still pretty solid, like in a few days, man.
Yeah.
And these aren't just like hoodies, they're huge, massive cars that cost $140,000. Estimated,
yeah.
Yeah.
That's pretty expensive.
It is, yeah.
Cool to see that, we're getting a cool wagon in Canada. That's amazing because I feel after the announcement of the RS3 being taken off the market, that was kind of hard for Canada. Like, you were kind of getting shafted with cool cars being pulled.
Not much left, honestly, for I mean, obviously there's good European cars, but all the special ones are kind of drying up, and especially now with the whole shift to smaller, cheaper builds and electric cars and stuff, it's slowly dwindling. So
yeah, exactly.
Pretty cool though that they're bringing it back.
But yeah, now let's jump into the main topic.
The good stuff. All right, so obviously, I think everyone who's a car nerd or anyone who likes cars knows about Formula 1, but also is fascinated by it because it's pretty much the kind of highest end that, performance and engineering goes in terms of, what it's capable of and how much stress these engines and cars can handle. So I thought it might be a good idea to just kind of touch on just how crazy these things are, how much they cost, and just kind of a bit of the history and kind of how Formula 1 operates, I guess. So yeah, let's dive in. So starting with F1 engines, which is arguably the most interesting part of Formula 1 car.
Yeah.
There's the aerodynamics, obviously, but this is obviously the whole driving force behind these things. So the crazy thing, I know we just said this off camera, but 20,000 RPM is what some of these engines can rev to. Some of the older ones, but also some of the newer ones. I don't believe the V6s can rev that high, but the older ones, they were limited, but they could reach in testing up to 20,000 RPM, which is insane.
I can't wrap my head around something spinning 20,000 times a minute. How?
Can
you even see that thing is gotta move
it doesn't exist if it's spinning that fast. Yeah, it's insane.
That's crazy.
I mean, yeah, it's wild, and I can't even imagine what they would if it's a V12 or something, what that would sound like. It would just sound. The closest thing I can imagine is like a race bike, because it'll go what, sometimes 10, 11,000. 12 sometimes.
I think it's similar to that, very high RPMs. Yeah.
Yeah, but 20 you can't even imagine. It's another 8,000 higher than that, or 9,000. Yeah,
which is what most normal cars live to.
Exactly. It's insane. And then they're governed to a measly 15,000 RPM. So that's what they're Still
insane.
insane, which is it makes sense because they're trying to like keep like a margin on it, so not much goes wrong. Which obviously is the wrong way to go about it because these engines are built to blow up pretty much because
Yeah.
it's just how they are. But yeah, I mean they used to be about 12,000 RPM, but that's kind of where they were limited because they had valve springs that weren't able to handle anything faster. And then Renault actually introduced a mechanism in 1986 that used pneumatic springs. And this allowed them to go well over 20,000 RPM, which is crazy. Some tiny little part in the valve system, and all of a sudden you can go 8 or 9,000 RPM higher. So
That's yeah.
crazy that everything else is completely fine. Like the whole other parts of the pistons, the cylinders, the whole engine, like housing, the fuel injection system, like everything can handle it except the valve springs.
Yeah, the camshaft too. Like
It's
how
crazy.
how does that work? Because
Yeah.
it's getting, if you have like, if you think about it, like 12 cylinders, you're getting 12 cylinder like constantly rotating. The
Yeah.
camshaft's gonna go fast too. So that's
Even the
interesting.
drive axle, like everything, like the diff, like
Yeah.
it's insane. Everything has to be handled to do that. Yeah, it's nuts. It's pretty crazy though because like the changes over time, like the FIA, which is the you can say it better,
Fédération.
International Automobile or something.
Yeah,
Something like
yeah,
that.
something like that. Yeah.
It's a French name anyway, but it's like the governing agency. We've talked about this in the last episode with the Revuelto. No,
The Diablo.
Diablo, the race Diablo. But yeah, so pretty much what they do is they govern Formula One and all of the racing in the automobile world. So they kind of get to make up the rules for what kind of engines are used, what displacement they have to be, if they can be naturally aspirated or if they can have turbos and superchargers. So every number of years, they kind of revamp the whole scene to kind of
Mm-hmm.
keep it interesting and to keep everyone innovating. So
It's also to encourage competition. 'Cause
exactly.
if one car dominates the entire season, then it's kind of boring.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. I know. Like Red Bull's definitely had that in the past, and like recently Ferrari's really caught up.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of a similar idea, but currently, very boringly, sad to say, 1.6 liter V6 engine, 4 stroke with a single turbo, and it has to have 2 hybrid systems. So that's the current regulations, and honestly, it doesn't sound like an easy thing to do. Putting all those things in it.
Yeah.
It's sad. It's sad because the sound is really what Formula One's all about. Like those crazy screaming huge engines. Well, they're not huge, but they have a lot of cylinders. Just like that insanity is kind of what brought people to the sport. You heard
Yeah.
that like in Monaco. If you're anywhere near Monaco back in like the 90s, I can only imagine what that must have sounded like. Like echoing
yeah,
exactly through the
city.
tunnels and like all
Yeah.
the streets and all the buildings. Like it must have been incredible.
Like we didn't see the F1, but we have the Indy 500 in Toronto.
Mm-hmm.
They sound cool, but like you can't recreate a V10 or V12 like that pure sound with
Yeah.
inline six.
And those RPMs too, like you can't like
Yeah.
it's insane. It's hard to imagine even what that was like, and it's sad that they don't like. I've seen clips on Instagram, and even that sounds insane. And knowing how things sound on Instagram versus real life, like I can't even imagine how good that must sound.
Yeah, like we just had that with the F12.
Yeah, exactly.
Like we just heard it revving. It's the ground was shaking. It was like deafening, and then we look at like we filmed it, and then look at the clip later. It's like, oh
Yeah,
that's
doesn't
boring.
capture it at all. And that's the weird thing because like an F12, you're like, oh, it's a high pitched car. It doesn't like rumble, but you literally felt the ground shake. It was like a jet engine. Like it was
Yeah.
insane. It's really cool. But yeah, I can't even imagine what that must have sounded like. So, again, so because they're V6 and they're turbo, they can't spool nearly as high. So they have a little bit of a reduction in the RPMs that they're allowed to do. So typically these engines can rev to about 15,000 RPM, but they're limited to about 12,000. So I mean, still insane numbers, but
Yeah, for sure.
definitely lower than what it used to be. And this is crazy. I know we just said that too. Over 1,000 horsepower. Like these days, it's
Yeah.
pretty much the standard, which is crazy.
That's impressive. Like, I would love to see. I know Koenigsegg was playing around with this of having a tiny, tiny V8, or no, I think it was like a 4 cylinder, and like insane amount of horsepower, just like an F1 engine. I'd love to see this like in road going cars,
Yeah.
like a 1 or 2 liter I don't know, inline six that revs to 10,000 RPM and makes 800 horsepower.
Yeah, people would literally hate you around your city if you
Yeah,
straight
that's
pipe that
true.
thing. You just hear
Yeah.
those like ricers, 8,000 RPM.
Mm-hmm.
It'd be pretty cool though, honestly.
Yeah.
I feel like all that kind of stuff is gonna come out eventually. Like when,
I guess the Gordon Murray car, which
yeah,
we covered, has that. It's, I think, 9,000
no,
RPM,
is it that high?
V12, or
That's pretty cool actually.
yeah, 9,800 or something like that. We did an episode on that. I guess that's the closest equivalent to
Yeah,
an F1 car
yeah,
at the
exactly.
moment.
Yeah, you should definitely go check that episode out. It was a good one too, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Enough about the engine itself, and let's talk about the engine history because this is where it gets really interesting. So the first season of Formula One actually started back in 1950, so it actually goes back quite a ways, as many European things do. And they had 7 European races. So I'm not sure what they're up to now, but it's definitely in the 20s or maybe even 30s.
Yeah, it's definitely across the world.
Not so much Europe anymore. I know there's like a Qatar circuit that got added a couple years ago. I think there's 3 U.S. races now. So, and then
Yeah.
there's Montreal here in Canada. Yeah, it's pretty much all over the world now. There's even like a Brazil race. Like there's so many. So that's definitely expanded too. But back in 1950, there's 7 European races, which is, I guess, where most of those European tracks come from as well, like Spa
Famous.
Francorchamps,
Yeah.
and like I forget the other ones off a whim, but the Italians, Imola, there you go. It's another one. They're all like legacy Formula One, so those are the ones they raced on. But yeah, so between 1954 and 1966, Ferrari like definitely rose up with its V12, and this is kind of the golden era for V12s. And it's sad that it's so long ago because like it would have been really cool. Like I know the V12s kind of went, you know, closer to 1990 as well, but this is like when they had the huge, I mean, for Formula One standards, the huge engines
Yeah.
with the V12. So this was 2.5 liters that they were allowed to use back then. It's almost a full liter bigger than it is now. And it was called the Lampredi engine, which I'm definitely not saying that right. It's Italian, so
Lampredi.
yeah, yeah, exactly. Need that Italian flair. Throw some cheese on it. But yeah, it was the limit of the engine size set by the FIA back then. So they had to be naturally aspirated, it had to be V12, and it had to be 2.5 liters. So that's kind of where it all started. So when they set that up. But yeah, pretty cool start to everything.
It is sad that we can't see them race, but I know, like, sometimes in Europe they'll have, like, it's kind of a throwback race car
Yeah.
events on tracks. Like, it's usually private events, and, some ballers will bring old F1 cars to the
That's so
show
cool.
and drive them around. So if you're lucky, you might get a chance to hear one of these. It's not like completely written off, but your chances are like very slim.
Pretty slim, yeah. That's the thing too. I think there's a guy here in Toronto. I think they had like a Formula One car. They brought it to like a gas station here in Toronto.
Yeah,
That
yeah.
was actually really cool. I think that was a V10 version.
It was pretty new.
Yeah, because it was like, or it might have been V8 even. I don't know, but it was like a pretty new one. But it was definitely before all the safety features went into effect because they don't have the like thing behind the head to protect the driver and stuff like that. So definitely an older one, but I mean, it's
I-
so cool to see.
I would love to know how he managed to convince the
Insane.
cops.
It's insane.
A race car in the streets, like, you gotta pull some strings.
I don't know if he drove it though, but I'm wondering if they maybe just took it on a trailer and parked it there for a
Yeah.
photo op. I don't know, but still, like, I've seen like advertisements where they did that. I don't know if that's staged or what, but like there's certain ads where they're just literally driving like a Formula One car. It's like a Mobile One ad, I think. It's pretty cool.
That'd be cool, yeah.
It'd be awesome. I think they did get one of the F1 drivers to do it though, like Max or I don't know. Would make sense because they know the cars better than I.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, anyway, so back to the Lampredi engine. So this engine actually allowed Ferrari to win the first drivers and constructors championships. So it started to kind of show that power of the V12 and kind of its reliability because I think that was the main issue when it first got started. The reliability was just awful. Like I read somewhere that it was about a race, like maybe not even a race sometimes, but one race is when an engine would last. You'd have to rebuild it.
Christ.
It's insane. Yeah, so like literally they spend the millions and millions of dollars and like all these parts and time and engineering, and it lasted a race.
I can see why Lamborghini said it's a waste of money. Like,
Yeah.
at that point, that's just
I
insane.
mean, completely understandable. Like you have to invest so much into this for it to make sense, and it's not even really directly profitable for them right away either.
Yeah, I think Ferrari definitely benefited, but some other smaller manufacturers like uh, Lotus, I'd say Lotus, and even McLaren.
Yeah.
McLaren's doing well now, but like for a while, like until 2010, they weren't really known for anything. They did the F1, and then they just kind of went away for I don't know 15 years, and
Yeah.
then they built the MP4-12C.
It's true.
Now they're doing okay, but yeah, like it doesn't guarantee you a success in road going cars.
Yeah. No, it's a good point. It's really interesting though, like the history and like how it all fits together because
Mm-hmm.
like everything kind of, although we don't think of it typically this way, that like F1 guided like like road going vehicles, but without F1 everything would be so much further behind. It's kind of
Yeah.
like how, going to outer space and like the whole space program changed like technology and X-rays
Mm-hmm.
and GPS. It's the same idea with this, right? Because they're going through all these crazy engineering marvels. They're pushed to the limits. They're given these direct specifications that they have to make the engine for, and then they have to implement that. And by doing that, they realize like all these things they can add to normal cars that would make it so much better.
Yeah, that's true.
It's pretty cool.
It's definitely it's kind of a shame that they set so many regulations, the FIA,
Hmm.
because it kind of caps like the whole. You don't have a real blank canvas. You like have restrictions and you have to fit into there.
Yeah,
But at the same time, it makes sense. Like you can't just because Ferrari would just dominate. They have unlimited budget,
exactly.
and then smaller companies that don't have a big racing team couldn't really compete
Like
because.
Williams or something. Like they were small before, and
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it's definitely. If you guys haven't watched Drive to Survive, by the way, you should definitely watch that. It's really interesting. If you're not really into watching the Formula One races per se, like I don't sit and watch every race, but like watching Drive to Survive, it's kind of like watching a highlight reel of everything that happens in previous seasons. So really interesting if you guys want to kind of get the gist of Formula One and kind of see the power struggles with the teams and stuff. It's very very well made. So definitely recommend that. But yeah, so kind of going forward a little bit to the V8 era, and so kind of going into the late 1960s, early 1970s, the FIA decided to ban superchargers. I don't know if there was a lot of F1 cars with superchargers, but they banned it anyway. There might have been a couple with the V12s that tried to supercharge it, or even the V10s.
It's an interesting choice though because superchargers technically like rob your engine of power
It's true.
because it's pulley driven.
Yeah.
Um, at higher when higher RPMs when you're sucking more air in, but at lower it doesn't really build more torque. It kind of puts strains on the engine. So
That's a good point. Maybe that's why they banned them for liability. I don't know.
potentially, yeah,
Yeah, because especially with those RPMs, like I don't know how a supercharger would handle that.
that would be dangerous because
Yeah, it's a lot of moving parts.
the belt itself would like,
It would have to be
holy,
a chain probably.
yeah,
I don't know if it'd work, but yeah, the cool thing is though, when they banned the superchargers, they also allowed the displacement to increase. So they went from 2.5 liters to 3 liters. So got even more interesting. And this is kind of when Lotus, as you just mentioned them, they came onto the scene. So what they did is interestingly they what's it called? Took forces, I guess. I don't know what the saying is.
partnered.
Yeah, partner. There you go. With Ford and Cosworth, all the way over in America, which is interesting for this time and age in history. And they built a 3 liter V8 together with Cosworth. And this was probably the most successful engine in Formula One to date. So this one actually got them 155 plus successful wins in Formula One. Like a bunch of different teams used it, but
That's crazy.
155 races they won with this engine. So it was a
That's
3 liter V8.
wow.
Insane, yeah. So even better, after 1989, they allowed the engine size to increase to 3.5 liters, which is massive by today's standards. And then this is when the V10 era kind of came into circulation. It got more popular, sounded really good, and the power increased between 1989 and 2005, between 600 to about 900 horsepower in 2005. So even in 2005, there was 900 horsepower Formula One cars, which is wild. And then yeah, actually, interestingly enough, Honda produced the most reliable and high pitched V10 engine.
That is
So
pretty interesting coming from Honda. Like
yeah,
you think Honda's always been known for reliability,
yeah,
but when you think of Honda, you think of like smaller engines, like tightly packed, and they do rev high, but you don't think of them as like big, bulky
Yeah,
V10s.
exactly.
So it's interesting that they, of course, they dominated because they're always gonna build reliable cars. That's the whole Honda way of doing things. But a V10's impressive for them.
It is, yeah. Yeah, if you click on that link, I don't I think it was a might be a sound. That's just insane. Like, if you think about how fast those pistons are moving, like, yeah, if you want to
Yeah,
think about that, it's insane. But yeah, and then right after that era where we had those V10s, the V8 kind of came back, but it was a smaller version. Went to about 2.4 liters, mandated by the FIA, and this went all the way to 2013. So over a 7 year period. And then they again changed the landscape right after that. So they went in 2014 to current, which is probably the longest period, about 10 years. Now we're at that 1.6 liter V6, and that's where we're currently sitting.
it's interesting. Like I get, the whole climate change and we must be more efficient and all that. But like why racing has never been efficient. It makes no
Hmm.
sense. You're putting what 20, 10 to 20 cars on a racetrack going in circles for 2 hours and then declaring a victor. Like it makes no sense. It's a waste of fuel anyways. So why start caring about engine size and how much
It's
it's
true.
polluting, I guess.
It's a good point. I don't know. Maybe it is just an idea for them to like get a different set of restrictions, because nobody's ever built that before this came into effect in 2014. So they're like, all right, let's see what they come up with or something.
Yeah.
But then again, why don't they go to W16 or something? Yeah,
I can't imagine an F1 car with two V8s in the back.
it's true. I'm also curious if it's speed related. Like maybe they're trying to build lighter so that they can, I mean, obviously there's a climate component that's pretty obvious, but maybe it goes a bit deeper in that they're just trying to build something that has insane power and build the lightest engine so that it just floors
Yeah.
it out of there. I don't know. We'll have to
That's
interview
interesting.
Max
But then,
Verstappen and see what he thinks.
yeah. But then, like, a hybrid system is not at all on, like, weight reduction
That's true.
direction. Because
Yeah.
it's just adding a bunch of weight. I mean, sure, you're getting instant torque and, you know, like, evening out the power band,
Mm.
but it's not going to make it lighter at all.
No, it's true. It probably honestly weighs the same as the V8 at that point. Because you
Yeah.
got the turbos too, which also weigh quite a bit. The whole intercooler system and everything. I don't know. Maybe they thought of something. I don't know too much about the engines, but maybe they don't even need an intercooler anymore. That's possible.
Yeah.
I'll
I'm sure
bypass it.
there's, like, a good reason. And they spend a lot of time over thinking and planning the whole reason.
Exactly. So, do you think that it'll go even smaller? Do you think we'll get an inline four or a V4, like electric? Is it going to be Formula E at some point?
Well,
It's going to merge.
yeah, Formula E. I feel like so the tough thing is, which is a shame, really. So they build a city, and then people want to race cars, so they build a racetrack outside the city.
Hmm.
But then the city expands and expands, and then they get close to the racetrack, and they complain, "Oh, you're making too much noise." So that's what keeps happening with all. I know Laguna Seca now is like impossible race at because you need to be under a certain amount of decibels. If not, you're getting black flag and kicked off the track.
Wow.
But it's like it's a racetrack. Like
Yeah. Like that's what it's for.
yeah, like everyone says like bring your race car to the racetrack, but now you can't go to the racetrack because you can't be loud. So
Yeah. So you have to build racetracks out in the boonies. That's the only way.
yeah, but then eventually someone's gonna build a house beside a racetrack and then complain. So like
Yeah.
the more densely populated areas become, the more complaints. So we're
Yeah.
moving towards Formula E, which now is appreciated by people because it doesn't make noise,
Mhm.
and you can race just whenever uh, you feel like,
Yeah.
essentially.
Doesn't really matter.
Yeah, and people won't complain. but then it's kind of like a whole community is just being shattered.
Yeah.
But I feel like Formula E is where we're going, which
I
is
feel
sad.
like potentially, yeah. I feel like they're gonna try to keep going smaller and like more hybrid systems until there's like nothing left, and then yeah, eventually merge into that. I mean, it's cool that there's still the whole racing aspect to it because that's the cool part of it. Like the
Yeah,
engines are awesome, but in the end, it's about like the skill of being able to drive like that, which is impressive. But I mean, it's sad. It'd be nice to have a nice sound associated with it.
I don't know about the whole racing because like we have, like I mentioned, the Indy in Toronto, but we also have the GT, like at the same time the GT3 Cup happens and the trophy trucks. I didn't really care about the Indy 500. Like, sure, I saw them zoom by a couple laps, but I was like, eh. And then
Yeah,
GT3 Cup happened, and like got to hear the inline six. I was like, damn, that's
yeah,
sick. And I stayed way longer for that
it's a good point.
because of the noise, the downshift, the acceleration, and the trophy truck too, like massive V8s. I don't know if like I would care if it was Formula E and just like sitting there just hearing like a whistle go by, and I don't know if
Yeah,
it'd be
the
as
whole spectator part, I don't really see as much
yeah.
enjoyment in that. That's true. Like I don't know. I feel like if you're driving it, it doesn't matter as much. Maybe it's still a factor, but I feel like I would care less than if I was watching.
Yeah, that's true.
But yeah. Anyway, shall we move on?
Yes.
All right. What's next?
The reliability, which
Ooh, this is a big one because notoriously they are hopelessly unreliable.
yeah, I mean, you don't build a race car to be reliable,
Exactly, I know.
but like this is just next level bad.
Especially if you consider how much money gets sunk into these things. Like if it's a $20,000 engine, okay, fine.
Yeah.
But these are like millions and millions of dollars. Like it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
But yeah,
What did you estimated 500,000 for one engine? That's
yeah,
crazy.
$500,000 to produce, and that doesn't even include all the research and development and stuff. And like
That's true. Yeah.
yeah, so I saw the stat. I don't know if this is accurate, but I've saw Forbes quoted at $1.4 billion to develop an engine for a winning team. And
That's
I know
nuts.
this isn't just like one engine, but just these it just gives you an idea of the scope of this mission, like how huge of a commitment and huge of a capital outlay it is for them to be able to produce these engines. And that's just the engine. That's not even the whole
Yeah.
car.
I mean, I could almost like I sure it's an insane number, but I can almost see it like just knowing how much goes into it. I feel like maybe it would make more sense for a whole car. Like just an engine, 1.4 seems a
Yeah.
bit much, but like I can see it because like just tuning and like picking the fuel, picking the everything. Like there's so much that goes into
So
it.
many variables.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that it makes sense, and it's such a high level. Like it's not, they'll do probably three different teams doing different tests at the same time on different dynos, and that alone is like
Yeah.
insane cost.
Exactly, and like you said, everything down to like the perfect fuel ratio, the octane level, the type of oil they use, everything is perfectly tailored to make it run as smoothly as possible.
Yeah.
And after all of that, after hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars of development, each engine costs between 500,000 and 11 million to build, and then it lasts 5 to 8 races.
That's brutal.
1,500 to 2,000 kilometers is the average like engine lifespan roughly. And don't get me wrong, we're not building entirely new engines every time. We're like, they're being rebuilt, so it's not like you're starting from the ground up every time. But I mean, even like in terms of reliability, say a piston goes through the housing, like that's pretty much scrap. You got to start pretty much from scratch.
Yeah, like you might be able to save a couple things, but the
Exactly.
whole engine's just ruined.
Exactly. But and then like I mean, if you think about the RPMs and how many cycles those engines do during these races, it makes complete sense. And like even just the strain they're put under, they're constantly so hot. Like it's almost like I just think about the brakes too, but that's obviously not part of the engine. But just like how much strain they deal with in a race, and it's just go 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 for a couple hours. So I mean, it does make sense, and honestly, they're more reliable than I thought they were. Like I thought, like obviously before it used to be about one race, but now it's 5 to 8 races. It's not great, but it's also not horrible either.
Yeah, I mean, That's still pretty low
The compression,
kilometers.
yeah.
Like
I
if you think about like our engines on a car, we're averaging like what 5 to 10,000 kilometers per oil change.
That's true.
These guys are changing a whole ass engine every 2,000
That's a
kilometers.
good point. But we're also just putting around most of the time, like
Yeah.
1,000 RPM. But yeah, these cars rarely come below like 8,000 RPM. So
That's true.
yeah, it's really crazy though, like that they are able to handle such high heat. And what I just can't get over with engines in general is how these explosions happen. In this case, 20,000 times per minute, and not one goes wrong. Like every spark is perfect, every amount of fuel is perfect, every amount of air is perfect. Like it's down to like a science that they've got this.
Yeah, for me the craziest thing is so the piston moves up and down, right? And the valves open. Any like millimeter
Exactly.
off and the valve will hit the piston and just
That's what I mean.
throw a valve and completely ruin the engine. And it's like how precise it has to be.
Exactly.
Nothing can go wrong.
Exactly. But it also, when the fuel comes in and when the exhaust goes out, like that needs to happen like what's 20,000 divided by 60? Like it's over like 5,000 times a second.
Yeah.
Sorry, that's not good math.
It's insane.
Almost 1,000 times per second. Like that's ridiculous. Like,
Yeah.
if you think about that. Like
That
that's,
is insane.
That's fucked. I can't even believe that. But yeah, just the fact that they've got that down to that. I mean, the reliability is pretty shit, but it's pretty crazy that they still. Because if you think about the total RPMs of 2,000 kilometers, like
Yeah.
yeah, like
I
it's,
guess that's how you measure like the real life of an engine.
That's
Not
true.
really the kilometers.
Yeah, yeah.
It's more the rotations per minute.
exactly. No, I think if you did the math, it would end up probably. I mean, you'd probably get like 40 to 50,000 out of one of these engines. If it was like a normal,
Yeah.
it's still high compression, but yeah. Anyway, interesting. But yeah, so even crazier, I found this on one of the F1 team's websites. So their F1 cars, I won't say which team because I don't know if it matters, but it's just a general figure. F1 cars have on average 80,000 parts that all need to work in sync for nothing to go wrong.
Is that like moving parts or?
Yeah, I think so, yeah. Like just everything that has like a function that needs to work with something else. 80,000. So that goes to show like how well engineered all this needs to be. Because if one thing is wrong, that's it.
Yeah, that's crazy to think. Like you don't see that many breakdowns or like did not finish in F1. So
Yeah.
for everything to be so perfect, that's why they have such huge teams.
Yeah, exactly. Everything needs to be perfect. But the craziest thing to me too is like if something does go wrong in F1, it's either a crash or it's a tire. It's never like, I mean, sure they have issues with the engine sometimes that it doesn't shift properly or something, but it's pretty rare. I would say tires and like crashes are probably the most common,
Yeah.
which is nuts. And even the fact that they don't crash that often with how close quarters everything is, it's pretty impressive too. That's a whole other ball game.
Yeah, these drivers are insane.
Yeah,
They're
yeah.
machines.
They
They're not-
literally are,
they're
yeah.
not human.
If you see some of their movements too, like how quick their response speed is, like they do those like tests where they like grab the balls, you know?
Yeah.
I'm just like, I try to myself, I'm just like, Jesus Christ, I feel like I'm 60 years old. I can't keep up with their, like how quick they are. It's nuts. But yeah, just everything about them is pretty crazy. We probably don't really expect them to last that long anyway.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's pretty much like comparing Lambos and Civics with
Exactly.
Formula One cars to performance cars. It's a whole other caliber.
Yeah.
So yeah, let's tile our thoughts together. What do you think about all this?
So to wrap it up, I think the direction we're heading is it's like this with most cars. Like every car is like moving towards small displacement, more efficient, EVs, electric. I don't know. We're supposed to be happy about it. We're supposed to be happy about the instant torque and efficiency and blah blah blah. I don't like it. I think it's a shame that we're missing something. Like we did an episode about the joys or the emotions, right? About owning cars and why we love it so much. And sound is such a huge part of that.
It's so
Hearing that.
weird how it is. Like
Yeah.
even just, I mean, I know we talked about this in that episode, but it's so weird that that's probably arguably one of the biggest factors for us. Like even when we talk about Formula One, like the only reason we want them to be gas powered is so they sound good.
Yeah.
Like for any other reason, I don't care. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
It's all maybe also like the feel of like feeling it rumbling under you. Maybe that's the other thing, but that comes with the sound, anyways.
And even like just the stuff we share on Instagram is like 90% of it is cool cars,
Yeah.
cool sounding cars.
Revving, accelerating,
Yeah,
exactly.
because we just love the noise. And I guess the best thing we can do now is just enjoy it while it's still around,
Hmm.
and just hoard all the NA engines you can before they're demolished.
Build
And
your own gasoline refinery on your
yeah,
property, and yeah,
yeah,
that's
exactly.
all you can do, I guess.
Um, but yeah, I think it's cool. I don't really watch F1. Um,
You should watch Drive to Survive.
yeah, I will do that. That's my homework.
Yeah, good
Um,
stuff.
and yeah, that's kind of my thoughts.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, overall, I think it's pretty cool that there is Formula One. Like, I feel
Hmm.
like seeing how much gets invested and like how these teams are just like top notch quality, like of the best. You know, they're like the top engineers from like Ferrari, from McLaren, from all these really good brands. They bring like the top of the top talent, and they go and work in the Formula One teams, and seeing how it all operates and how they're like just like the whole dynamics of building a successful team. It's pretty much like building a business, really,
Hmm.
which is really cool to see. But yeah, I think overall it's a very interesting thing to watch. It's an interesting thing to learn about. The engines are crazy, and even though they're V6 now, it's still cool. Like they don't sound as cool, but it's still cool seeing how it's evolved and how the reliability has changed. So,
Hmm.
yeah, definitely think that's it. Anyway, enough rambling about F1. Hopefully, we can do another episode at some point. Just talking about like strategy or how Formula One cars are built. That would be cool too.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just kind of a rough overview of engines and reliability. So yeah, anything you want to add?
Now we have a question for you guys. Are you team Formula One or NASCAR?
Ooh, let the debate begin.
Yeah, which one
We
are you?
expect fist fights in the comments. I don't know. I'm gonna have to say Formula One because I am European, and also because I just, I'm sorry, NASCAR people, but there's more skill involved with F1.
I could see that. Like NASCAR is a weird thing. Like, because in NASCAR, I think I don't know the rules, but I think it's okay to bump someone, like to hit them.
That's true.
It's a completely different world. Like you'll bump someone or draft. Whereas F1, yeah, I feel like it's
You know what the perfect analogy is for this? Soccer versus football.
yeah.
Because
I could
European
see that.
soccer and then American football, it's NASCAR and Formula One. It's the exact same.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I definitely agree. Obviously, I've respect for NASCAR too. They're big American V8s. You can't say no to that. And just like the whole culture behind the sport's cool. Like the whole atmosphere and like how people come and fans come, and it's like
Hmm.
usually associated with like drag racing and all that stuff too. So it is a lot of fun. It's definitely a lot of spirit in it too. But yeah, if I had to pick one, it'd probably be Formula One.
Yeah.
How
For
about you?
sure. That's tough. I would add another category, Formula Drift, and I would do that one.
Formula Drift. Yeah, perfect.
Drifting is kind of nice, yeah. But
Yeah.
if I had to pick one, probably F1. I feel like, yeah, it's a bigger following, more technology involved.
Yeah, I gotta say though, how it's recently been blowing up on Instagram and stuff, and I see these girls say, "I'm gonna go to the Grand Prix." I'm like, bruh.
Yeah, I feel like it's kind of become a trend now. Like it's trendy and
Yeah,
cool
yeah,
to
it's
like Formula One.
interesting. Yeah, I think it's also just the money that's involved and stuff, but
Yeah.
that's definitely the whole Monaco scene and everything. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, all
For
right.
sure.
Anything else you want to add?
No, that's it.
All
See
right,
you in the
guys.
next episode.
See you next time. Goodbye.
Goodbye.